Hey, so this is just a real quick video on left hand posture, technique, position for playing banjo. So I may as well just start with a quick summarizing kind of headline of it before we go into it, which is your left hand should only be in one of two positions while playing the banjo, 99% of the time. So needs to be noted now that this is just as a habit that you want to stick to as often as possible. It's a habit you want to develop while you're practicing. There will be times where you do slip out of either of these positions a little bit, but it should be very, very rare. And it should feel a bit weird, and you should try to get back to them. It does happen. It happens. I'll sometimes be playing it, and I'm noticing my hands actually a little bit out of position. It's in neither of them. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's very, very rarely necessary. But it's just the way habits work. Even the best habits we don't live up to perfectly, and that's perfectly fine. It's the same with technique on an instrument. Sometimes you'll be playing something that's not technically perfect, but that's fine. Still, we do want to develop this as a habit. So the two hand positions, left hand positions for banjo are what I call the folk hand position, or maybe the classic hand position. No, that's a little bit confusing. Let's not call it the classic. Just call it the folk hand position. If I'm teaching someone guitar, I might call it the rock hand position because it's used in rock music. But really, it's for us, it's the kind of folk, old-timey maybe hand position. And then the other position is like the classical, because it's what a classical guitarist, how they would play. So we'll start by looking at the folk hand position, which is the default for loads of stuff. If you're playing, especially below the 5th fret, if you're playing loads of chords, if you're playing a relatively simple melodic tune, then this hand position works perfectly fine. And it is, well, it looks like this, right? It's this. So, I mean, I'm just going through a couple of chords there to show you that how it kind of moves up and down, it changes. The thumb is wrapped around the neck is kind of the key defining point of this. For both of these hand positions, possibly the most important thing is that your palm should not be in touch with the neck of the banjo. This should never happen. Never. It never happens to me, right? It should be like, never like that. Just don't do it. There's no other way to say it. This really. This is the folk hand position, and then the fingers kind of do this. So I'll go into it a little bit more detail, and I'll tell you how to kind of find this hand position. So firstly, how to get into this position. Hold your hand up like this. Literally hold it up as if you're kind of waving, but then make sure it's like nice and relaxed. Just get it like this, and put the curved back of the neck, it's designed that way for a reason, right? Into this part between your thumb and your finger. It fits perfectly. So you literally just want to do this. And then relax your thumb, and your fingers should just kind of like naturally fall around. What you want to do is make sure you're sitting up, don't have your shoulders hunched, and you don't want your elbow in like this, you want your elbow out. This is true of both hand positions, right? So this is it. We'll do this again, actually, that. Like this, put the curved bit of the back of the neck into the curved bit between your thumb and your finger, right here. You should be literally touching it. That is the important bit, touching it. So not like floating. Some people will have this like floaty hand, and they're trying to like fret. It's just, there's no leverage. There's no like, you need to be anchored on. Like this, and then just relax. Your thumb should come round a bit. Your thumb should be relaxed. So we don't want like a stiff thumb pointing up. Everybody's hand is different. It's worth pointing that out. So if your thumb is perfectly relaxed and it's pointing up, that's fine. You don't need to like bend it round. The point is that it's relaxed. Don't hold it in any position. Don't clench it. Don't squeeze the neck. Just nice and relaxed. So honestly, to start off with, you want to actually be a bit laborious about it and take your time. Get your hand like this. Get it like that. Keep it quite high up on the neck, 1st or 2nd fret. And then just relax like this. And then when you relax it naturally, don't close your hand, don't clench your hand, let it close naturally. Your fingers are going to be kind of in the right place to play a bunch of chords. And this kind of hooks on, keeps you anchored. And if you need to move up and down to play a chord here compared to here, don't just do this. Don't like shift your wrist and just move your fingers out. You can see how the thumb is sliding up and down. That's how we do it. So when I'm playing lows are like just straightforward, relatively straightforward, like old-timey folk tunes, whether that's like Cripple Creek's a good example. I'm in this position, right? If I'm playing something that's just loads of chords, you know, it could be a classic like Country Roads by John Denver, something with relatively straightforward chord progression where I'm down here. I'm in this folk or rock, whatever we want to call it, hand position. Depends what instruments you're used to playing in the past. This kind of hand position. It's nice and relaxed. It's anchored. It's quite comfortable. It's easy. But the problem with it is it doesn't have much reach. So if I'm in this hand position, I can't really reach very far at all. My first finger here is on the first fret, and I can't even reach past the third fret with my little finger, right? So I can't stretch it any further. That is a problem with that hand position. If you ever do play vibrato or bends on the banjo, which are relatively rare, this is a perfect hand position for that. That's why rock guitarists love them, because there's loads of like bends and vibrato in rock music. Less common on banjo, and even less common on clawhammer banjo. But it's really good for that as well. Not that that's super important. But yeah, it has a glaring weakness, and that is that it just doesn't have much reach. It has a lot of strength for the frets that it can reach, so hammer-ons and pull-offs can be good. I was a bit sloppy there, but forgive me. It's good for that. But yeah, so if we want something with a little bit more reach, we need to go into the classical hand position, which these aren't the official names, they're just what I call it. This is how like a classical guitarist plays. So it's like this really. Now, I'll just point out before I get into like what the position is and how to find it, that already, right, the reach on this is that's the 5th fret there, and that's the 12th fret there, and I probably could go a bit further, right? I'm like 6'6", I'm huge. So my reach is probably a lot further than like the average person. But nonetheless, whoever you are, you have more reach doing this hand position, the classical hand position, than you do the folk hand position. By definition, you just can't reach as far. So if you're playing anything tricky, loads of like, if you're playing Irish folk tunes on clawhammer banjo, or some certain types of bluegrassy stuff, if you're that kind of advanced player, or just kind of melodic stuff, then you might need to at least slip into this hand position occasionally. So for this hand position, instead of this and then just relaxing around it, what we're doing is we're getting the thumb and we're putting it on kind of the peak of the curve of the back of the neck. So it's the middle point really there, and just literally do that, right? And keep your hand open and then just relax it, right? So my hand just relaxes like this. That's the position, right? Again, you want your elbow out. I don't want you to be too particular about it, but in an ideal world, your knuckles are parallel, or kind of mostly parallel, to the neck. So the neck is running this way, it's that way, and you'll see my knuckles, you know, if there was a line across my knuckles, it would be parallel to this neck. A lot of people might be like this, or a little bit like this. It's not the end of the world. You'll get it in time, and everyone is a little bit different, as I said, so I don't want to be too strict with that, but it's kind of just there as a, hey, this is a bit of an aspiration. So again, get your hand like this. Always start like this, actually, to start off with, while you're getting used to this. Put your thumb here on the back of the neck. You know, if we were all the way up to the first fret, it would be here, and just let it relax like that. And then you see, the reach on this is huge. I can really just stretch out my fingers so much better, because with this folk position, just the way the tendons in our hands work and the way that this hand position is, you just can't reach anywhere near as far. But this, we've really opened it up, and now everything is stretched out. So thumb on the back of the neck, like right in the middle bit, which is kind of the peak of the speed bump, if you will, there, and then just relax it. Again, being relaxed is always the name of the game. And you'll notice here as well, the palm is never touching the neck. Super important. So this would be really bad. That just completely limits our motion. And for the classical hand position, your thumb shouldn't be around the neck. So it shouldn't be like this. What I find is while people are getting used to this and get used to playing banjo, their left hand will sometimes slip into this thing which is kind of halfway between the two, where the thumb is kind of wrapped around the neck a little bit and the hand is looking like it's classical. It's the worst of both worlds. Sometimes their palm will touch the neck, in which case it's disastrous. Please do not let your palm touch the neck. I know I repeat that a lot, but I repeat everything a lot, and it's just what you need if you're a beginning to intermediate player. Yeah, they slip into this position which is the worst of both worlds, where it's the banjo neck ends up kind of in contact with this part of the thumb, when it should either be the thumb pad or right here between the thumb and finger. I think you can see that. Here between the thumb and finger is the folk position. Thumb pad is the classical position. Try not to go for this kind of weird halfway thing. Certainly do not have your palm flat against the neck. A big thing that will help usually, if your palm does touch, if you find your palm is touching the neck a lot, you want to push your wrist out. And this is the part of my lessons where you end up usually, if I'm teaching someone in person, kind of have to treat someone like a bit of a mannequin, where I'm kind of like pushing their hand and their arm out and stuff like that. You need to kind of push your wrist out, and you'll notice what I'm doing here is, usually what I find is if I tell someone who's doing this to push their wrist out, they'll do this. It's like, that's your elbow, or they'll do something with their shoulder. Literally just this. And I'm being a bit facetious or whatever. A little bit disrespectful to my students, because it is hard. It's genuinely hard to isolate the motions one by one. If I say push your wrist out, people aren't used to just doing that motion, so they move the whole arm. But if you can, just watch what I'm doing. If your palm is touching the neck or you're doing some weird position, most of the time the solution is just push your wrist out. My elbow is not moving or barely moving. Push your wrist out. Make sure we're in this classical hand position or this rock hand position. So here, watch, palm is on the neck. You can see that this arm is bent really weirdly and the tendons in my arm are kind of like tense. Relax, push that wrist out, and now I'm in a kind of folk position. Here, kind of bad classical position where my palm is on the banjo neck. Not good. Push your wrist out just like that. So I'm trying to get this on camera. Your wrist can, bend like this. So just be aware of the range of motion that your different joints are capable of, and just try to push it out bit by bit. If you need to watch this video, that bit on repeat over and over, give it a go. It's a lot harder when you don't have someone there in person telling you exactly what to do, but this is really important. So this is important not just for your actual technique and being able to play things. Obviously that's what you want to do when you're playing banjo, but also just to mitigate or avoid entirely injuries. If you're trying to reach for something and you're in this horrible tense position, this feels uncomfortable immediately, you're actually at risk of repetitive strain injury, just being a bit achy and just making yourself miserable when you should be trying to enjoy playing music as much as possible. So again, to sum it up, your hand position, your left hand position, there's only two. There's only really two options, and you want to develop the habit of only being in one or the other. Sometimes you will slip out of it. I do find myself kind of sometimes slipping into something weird if I have to suddenly go from here to here really quickly, but then I quickly correct myself. It should only be in one of those two positions. Develop it as a habit rather than as a super strict law that you always stick to, but just try to fix it if you're out of position. One other thing that I've just remembered is in either position, that I'll just kind of show you up here, what you don't want is your thumb separate from where your fingers are. Again, this will sometimes happen, but develop this as a habit. This is all just about developing habits, right? Practicing habits that translate into your playing ability, right? You don't want this big gap between your thumb and your finger. Your thumb should be in line with one of your fingers. Honestly, any of your fingers is better than none of them, which is all the way up here, but it's usually going to be in line with one of these two fingers, basically your first or your second finger. So if I show you this, wrap it around in this folk position, it's kind of in line with the second finger, maybe the first finger, but it shouldn't be up here because this is super tense. It just doesn't leave a lot of range of motion at all. Here, I'm trying to actually play something where it's out of sync, and I'm trying to break that rule. It feels really weird. This is way better. So that's a G chord up the neck, and this thumb is in line with this first finger. Shouldn't be out of line with it. But sometimes you will find like maybe it's in line with this third finger even. That's not really a problem. It's not actually a problem. That's much less of a problem than this. So if I'm in a classical hand position, you can't see it because it's behind the neck, but the thumb is in line currently with this. It's just behind here, behind this second finger. Again, if I move it up here, you can kind of see it there. It's out of line with any of them, and that's just completely limited my range of motion. I can't even stretch this finger much further beyond that, but as soon as it's in line, now I can, if I want to, stretch really far. So that's the final thing. To sum up again, right? Two hand positions, two left hand positions. They are the folk hand position. I'll just show you quickly like that and keep it relaxed. The classical hand position like this, and that's it. Try to, as a habit, stick to only one of two of those positions. And the final thing is keep this thumb, whatever position you're in line with your fingers, not out of sync. And just to really reiterate the final point, your palm, this is the cardinal left hand sin for banjo playing. Palm should not be touching the neck. Please don't do this because it's completely limited my range of motion. I can't do anything. It's terrible. Just push your wrist out and it's probably going to fix it. Yeah. Hopefully this is helpful. I find that everyone I teach needs to go through the process of fixing this a little bit, and it does make a big difference. It can be frustrating though, so that's why I tell people not to worry about it being perfect too much, and try to apply it to you playing something. So don't just sit there doing this, you know. This, you need to actually try to apply it in. If it's Cripple Creek, always go to Cripple Creek because it's just such a good tune to play anything. Obviously everyone learns it. Whatever it is, it could be a folk tune, it could be just like learning a pop tune and just the chords. Just apply this idea in your playing and it will get there eventually. Again, it's about developing it as a habit rather than it being perfect instantly, because it just won't be. Anyway, see you around.